Bartmann. You might remember him. He joined us a couple months ago. Bill, it's great to see you again. You may remember Bill because I think I asked you, Bill, how does it feel to be rich on this show, which was, which, you know, I just wanted to know because you went from being bankrupt to being a billionaire, and it's an incredible story, and you were looking at investing in PPIP. So why don't you bring us up to date? We haven't talked in a little bit. What are you looking at doing right now? Are you looking at still being involved in the PPIP program?
We are indeed, and good morning, and yes, being rich is better than being broke, and I've had experience with both of them, as we jokingly talked about the last time. But I want to disagree just respectfully with your last guest on PPIP being dead on arrival. Actually, PPIP is alive. Now, it is a shadow of its former self, but it's alive, and the other day, Wednesday, we had two announcements, actually came part of the joint conference with Sheila Bair and Bernanke and also with Geithner, where they really blew life back into PPIP, albeit it was kind of a shallow breath from the security side. But what was really interesting is they put the whole loan program back on the table. So to answer your question, yes, we're ready, yes, we're able, and yes, we're going to jump back in with both feet.
One of the interesting things, Bill, that we thought, or that we saw last week was that another Bill Gross and Pimco backed out of PPIP, which was to many people kind of a red flag because it had been one of the most public supporters. I think at one point called it a win-win-win. And the logic going in was that for people that wanted to invest, this was a great opportunity because the government essentially had your back. In fact, people were complaining, saying, oh, this is unfair advantage for some of these funds, and now we don't see as much interest. What's changed?
Well, two things, and one, I think that we have to kind of make sure that the audience understands the distinction between the two legs of PPIP, and one of them is the Legacy Securities Program, which is what Bill Gross got out of, but also it's the one that the 9 winners were announced the other day, where it's now Christmas in July for them. Those are the assets that, quite frankly, are just going to be a Russian roulette of whether they work or do not work, and so it's a high-risk gamble that they're involved in. The second leg, the one that we are interested in, is a whole loan program, and that's the one that we think is much easier to moderate, much easier to measure, and quite frankly, so much more quantifiable so the risk can be assuaged.
Can you explain to us that program and how it would work for someone like you?
Well, absolutely. The whole loan program, as now they have redefined PPIP one more time, is going to have the same chemical characteristics that the securities program has, where by way of example, if an investor puts in $1, Treasury will match it with $1, and then the FDIC will come along and leverage you up to 6 times the total of investment. So if you've got now $2 on the table, one of yours and one from the Treasury, FDIC in concept will allow you to borrow $12, and the FDIC will guarantee the $12, by the way. So now you've got $14 worth of investment capital, only one of which is yours. Now you will end up having to share the results with the Treasury, but boy, that's a nice risk reward.
So how much are you looking to invest?
Well, we're waiting to see how wide they'll open the door. The very first program that they have announced so far is assets from the failed bank of Silverton from Atlanta, Georgia. And it's a credit card portfolio, $182 million portfolio. The rules haven't been fully defined yet. They are telling us August 12th they will actually make the rules known, and that will tell us how aggressive our appetite is going to be. But in a vacuum, we'll start with very aggressive.
All right, so then you jump in. I wonder how this is going to play out over time, because then, you know, as you said, you disagree with our previous guest, Bob, who was essentially saying, all right, it's out there, but now it's just going to fade away into oblivion. You must have the point of view that, and you just explained it, you know, well, why it's attractive to you as an investor, that it's going to grow. People are disappointed at the slow start. Again, to go back to that original question, why the slow start, and how do you see it playing out? How is it going to grow?
Well, the slow start, I think, is the same slow start we had with TARP and TALF and just essentially about every other program that was initially thrown out there in kind of a hurry-scurry kind of way. Over the course of time, they kind of rethought their position, and the ones that were winners now have life in them. So I think when they're looking at PPIP, they're doing two things. One, the securities program. They've got to get rid of some of those toxic assets. Some they're now going to dabble in that $30 billion to $40 billion is in fact a marginal amount compared to the $1 trillion they ultimately started with. But in that very same joint conference that they had 2 days ago, they said the FDIC is not just going to use the whole loan program for the assets that are in receivership, the 52 banks that failed this year, the 25 that failed last year, the 3 that failed the year before that, but they're actually going to use the legacy loan program, leg of PPIP, to buy loans from open banks. Now, in the old days, everybody argued, the old days were 3 months ago, that banks wouldn't be able to do that. Banks wouldn't sell their assets because pricing would be so problematical. Well, I think we have learned the Rick Wagner saga. And the Rick Wagner saga is, if I'm the government and I own 34% of Citicorp, I don't think Citicorp's going to tell me we have a pricing problem. I think the pricing is going to be whatever the government says.
Interesting. That's interesting. That's an interesting relationship we're going to have to continue to watch. Bill, we're going to have to wrap it up, but a final quick question. If you had $100 lying around to invest anywhere today, this Friday, where would you put it?
I would buy more bad loans.
Yeah,
really?
How confident he is in this thing.
You are so,
yes.
but you've made a lot of money doing it, so.
Absolutely.
What's your book again, Bill, by the way?
The book is called Bailout Riches, and it's all about how the average citizen can get involved in this process, how they can buy non-performing loans for pennies on the dollar.
Okay, a couple of our viewers wanted to know how to do that. You know, we talked to someone at BlackRock, and they were putting a fund together and what have you for just, is that still, to best of your knowledge, is that still going forward, all that stuff that had been talked about for people to buy into these, you know, just average Joes?
Well, there are those funds that are actually being created, but I'm talking about it in this conversation now, a whole new approach. The FDIC, the major banks are already selling loans. They're already doing this. This isn't concept. This isn't theory. This isn't academic. This is real. As recently as a week ago, some of my students bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of charged-off credit card loans for a nickel on the dollar from banks that are alive and well and healthy.
All right.
Well, we're going to have to pick up that book.
I think so.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate talking to you always. And really, keep us up to date on how it's going, because it's great to...
Yeah.
I wouldn't put, I don't even know how to put $100 of my money to work in buying loans. I got to read Bill's book.
I'll give you $100. You can put it. You can put
there
mine
you go.
In. All right. Whatever.
I'm totally going to spend your money.
Thank you. That's right.
Thanks, Bill. We'll talk to you soon.
That was good. Kind of fair and balanced. We had the one opinion from Bob Eisenby says, no, this thing's not going to work, and Bill saying, yes, it is, and I'm going to spend money
if there's
making it work.
one thing for sure, we know that we don't know what's going to happen.
No, we don't, but that's why it's fun to watch from our point.